fine. What we're going to do right now is actually, with the help of some, we're actually going to pass out these quizzes. And what we wanted to do is, as we pass these out, hopefully you have a writing utensil. Does anyone not have a writing utensil that they will need for us to provide? Okay, we have some of those as well. We're going to hit out this quiz, and what we're going to do is we're going to take about just 2 to 3 minutes to just give you some time to it's just true and false. It's real simple, folks.
Don't cheat, don't look at your neighbor.
Don't look at your neighbor. The other thing is that you don't have to hand this in. Obviously, it's just for you, so don't put your name on it, don't worry about it. It's just true and false. Simple, true, or false. And it's about getting an idea of what do I actually think or believe that the church teaches as far as it comes to homosexuality. So we're just going to give you about 2 to 3 minutes just in quiet to take this quiz, and then we're actually going to take the rest of our time, mostly, just to kind of walk through the quiz, question by question, and hopefully make a lot of distinctions for you, and hopefully shatter any illusions or myths that you may have had carried for many, many years. Okay? The other thing I want to mention at this time as well is that as you came in, you may or may not have grabbed those blue note cards, like index cards in the back. We want to conclude tonight with doing a little bit of a question-answer time. But the way we do our question-and-answer time, especially because of this topic, is that if you at some point feel as though you have a question you'd like to ask, please feel free to write it down on this card. And then if you kind of want to have it, you want to hold it up to one of these fine ladies right here, they'll grab it from you. And at the end of the night, Mary and I will take these cards, these question-and-answer cards, and we'll go through them, as many as possible. We have about a 10 to 15-minute chunk of time to do the question and answers at the end. We may not be able to get to all the questions, just so you know. But we run it that way because we've learned that it's better to do question and answer, especially with this topic, through cards rather than traditional question and answer. Okay? So feel free to fill out those questions if you need to, and please take a few moments to fill out your quiz. All right, folks, I know most of you are done, so we're going to actually, what we're going to do is we're going to use the PowerPoint here on the projection. We're actually going to walk through each question, and we're going to explain what the answer is, true or false, and then we'll actually just kind of explain a little bit, maybe too, as needed. Some you'll understand we'll explain more on, and others we'll explain more detail. Because some of the questions, it'll come later. Like a fuller explanation will come later as we walk through our presentation, okay? The other thing I'll say is if you're really type A, you can grade your own paper to see how you did. You know what I mean? You can do that if you'd like. If it helps you. So,
like stars.
Grade yourself. Yeah, the stickers on it when you get home, whatever you want.
You did not anticipate having this much fun tonight, did you?
Very good. Okay, so let's start off. The first question here is that the Catholic Church teaches that people are not born gay. The Catholic Church teaches that people are not born gay. And the answer to this is actually false. Okay? And actually, a quote from the Catechism itself. And just to let you know, whenever you see, like in the bottom there, you see how it says CCC? That stands for Catechism of the Catholic Church. And that's kind of its abbreviated, whenever you're like footnoting it or what have you. So we're going to try to give you a lot of the Catechism, what the Church directly teaches. And basically, the Catechism is quoted as saying, the Church teaches that the psychological genesis of same-sex attraction is still largely unexplained. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, have tried to take guesses at this. And some people kind of in churchy groups have tried to take guesses at this. Oh, we believe that so-and-so is gay because, maybe a poor relationship with their mother or father. Oh, we believe so-and-so is maybe gay because of, they were maybe molested or hurt or affected as a child. And sometimes the thing is, people are gay for such a variety of reasons and so subjective that when people oftentimes try to make these reasons of why so-and-so is gay, it actually becomes very extremely offensive to those who are gay, those who do find themselves in the same-sex attraction, and to their families and to whoever. And so, in very large business, the church has kind of said, look, we don't know where it comes from. We don't know the genesis of it, but we do know that obviously we find people who are attracted to same-sex people that are gay. So the question is not so much where does it come from, the better question is, how do I love them? And how do I minister to them? How do I bring Christ to them? And that's really, I know for Mary and I, that's really our focus. People have asked us those questions before, after talks and stuff like that, and we kind of say, we're the church, we don't know. And we don't really care for them. What we worry about, though, is the people that are gay, how do we care for them? How do we love them? Second question here. The Catholic Church calls homosexuality a phenomenon and explains there is no way to tell when the same-sex attraction begins. I just kind of explained it, right? So true is what the answer would be after that one, according to the Catechism. Same citing in the same paragraph. One more question, and then turn it over to Mary for a couple questions. The third question here is that the Catholic Catholic Church is similar to evangelical Christian churches in terms of her teaching on homosexuality. Now, some of us are familiar with evangelical Christian churches, some of us maybe not so much. But we had in mind here something like a Westboro Baptist. I know we've heard a lot about them, especially in the last number of years through the media. And the answer to this one is false. The Catholic Church is not similar in our approach to those evangelical Christian churches in terms of its teaching. Unfortunately, many of them view those people that that are gay, even if they're not acting on that homosexuality, even if they're not acting out on it, that they would consider them already sinful. And if they are acting out on it, they would consider them definitely sinful and probably going to hell. We as a church do not hold that same kind of ground. We as a church have a different kind of teaching, a third way, if you will, and we'll kind of explain that more fully as we move on throughout the presentation.
It's important to point out that distinction. And again, we do the majority of our work with young people, but young people hear it all as the same, right? So if they see somebody from the Westboro Baptist Church holding up a sign that says, God hates gay people, which is not what those signs say, it's much more offensive, right? And then they hear that the church has a particular stance on the sacrament of matrimony between a man and a woman, they think they're the same. We have a very deep theology around sexuality, which we're so blessed with. It's very different than, I would say, all Christian churches, and quite different from churches like Westboro Baptist. The next question, number 4. The Catholic Church teaches that living with same-sex attraction is difficult. And that answer is true. The Catechism of the Catholic Church says, this inclination, which is objectively disordered, constitutes for most of them a trial. I talked to you about David in the beginning, who said, are you saying God wants me to be alone? Loneliness is something we all struggle with, right? That part of the teaching, right, that says that the sacrament of marriage is for a man and a woman, it's tough. That's a tough call, and we shouldn't minimize it. Next, number 5. The Catholic Church teaches that homosexual persons must be treated with respect, compassion, and sensitivity. That answer is true. The Catechism says they must be treated and accepted with respect, compassion, and sensitivity. It's funny. How many of you followed the Synod stuff? Did any of you follow what was happening in Rome? Okay, about half of us. So midway through this Synod that the church just had on marriage and family, a report was issued that said a couple different things about homosexuality and used some language that was quite welcoming and accepting and I would say a relief for many of our gay brothers and sisters, right? Now, the end of the Synod, those couple paragraphs, they didn't pass, right? By a 2/3 majority. A lot of the Synod fathers had some issues with exactly what was said. It's real fine stuff that has to do with language. But one of my friends in social media, she messaged me and she said, is it true that the Synod decided we don't accept gay people? And I said, no. In fact, our catechism says that they must be accepted with respect, compassion, and sensitivity. It's pretty clear what our church teaches regarding people. The next question. The Catholic Church teaches that it is sometimes okay to unjustly discriminate against gay people. Sometimes. That answer is false. The Catechism of the Catholic Church says, every sign of unjust discrimination in their regard should be avoided. Every sign of unjust discrimination should be avoided. During the question and answer, we might talk about just and unjust discrimination and some fine theology. But any sign of unjust discrimination must be avoided. This is church teaching.
Question number 7. The Catholic Church teaches that homosexual acts are not approved because they are closed to the gift of life. The Catholic Church teaches that homosexual acts are not approved because they are closed to the gift of life. The answer to that is true. The Catechism goes on to state they are contrary, meaning homosexual sexual acts, are contrary to the natural law. They close the sexual act to the gift of life, and under no circumstances can they be approved. This is a kind of a tougher one that we're reading here. You know, for many people, this is like, whoa, what's going on there? You're talking about being contrary to the natural law. Well, what the church has to say about this teaching on sexuality, we're actually going to get to a little bit more fully in later questions. So I'm going to kind of reserve it and kind of put a pin in it for right now and do a fuller explanation, because I think a later question more fully responds and answers to that. But this is one of the tougher ones. You know, nobody said following Christ was going to be easy. Nobody said his teachings were always easy and doing whatever we want to do, whenever we want to do them. It's extremely difficult as we continue to walk through sometimes. But at the end of the day, it comes down to being the people that God has created us to be. Being the people that God has created us to be. He's created us to be with him forever in heaven. That's how he created us, Adam and Eve, in the garden. We messed up through our original sin. And everything, the whole story since has been about God recklessly trying to pull us back into that relationship. Trying to get us back to the beginning, back to the start, back to the way that he designed things and created things in full goodness. And that's a tough thing, because we have so many things pulling us in directions. Every sin is pulling us in a direction contrary to who we're actually called to be. Everything from lying and stealing to homosexuality, they're all the same. They're all trying to call us out from being, the actions of it anyway, calling us out from being who we're actually designed and created to be in God. Question number 8. The Catholic Church teaches that every human being is called to live out the virtue of chastity. Every human being is called to live out the virtue of chastity. And that is true. Not to be confused with celibacy, okay? Homosexual persons are called to chastity, just as everyone else is. I'm a married man, Mary is a married woman. She and I both are called to chastity. Single people that are young and dating, people that are old and divorced or widowed, every single human being, priests, deacons, nuns, single, married, everyone's called to chastity, because it's a virtue by which and every virtue is a habit, right? So it's a habitual form of rightly appropriating the sexuality as a gift that God has given to us. Rightly appropriating the gift of sexuality as God has given it to us. And that's what they mean by that term, chastity there. And everyone is called to understand